Hey guys, this is Eric B.Horn, and welcome to another episode of the CARE vlog. If this is your first time here, welcome. And just to give you a little bit of background information on the CARE vlog, CARE is an acronym that stands for Career Advancement, Retention, and Enhancement. What myself and my co-host Nassar, who you'll meet in a quick second, we talk about all areas of career when it comes to entry-level professionals and how to search for the job, dealing with some of the how to cope with stress at your job, how to reward yourself when it comes to making accomplishments, because there's so many aspects that you need to be aware of when it comes to your career. This is where myself and Nassar come into play. So before we even get into our topic, I wanted to pass things over to my co-host, Nassar.
Thanks, Eric. Hey, everyone, welcome back. My name is Nisar Ahmed. Quick introduction. I'm the managing editor of the publishing platform, Career.Advancement.Readiness.Enhancement. We focus on providing career advice, job search advice, leadership advice, communication skills advice for job seekers and freelancers. And I'm also the host of the Career Menace podcast. And today I'm actually excited about this topic, how to get a raise. And this is something I get asked a lot. I've done this myself. I've had my friends ask me for feedback. I've given some ideas. So I'm excited to talk about this topic. But let's not forget the fact, Eric, and that this is not easy. So let's get that out of the way, right? Like getting a raise. I'm sure everyone believes that they are underpaid, and trust me, we all have that feeling. But this is not easy. I'm not saying it's not easy to get a raise. I'm not saying it's very hard to ask. It's something outside of most people's comfort zone. I'll start off with saying that because let's acknowledge the fact it is hard, and because it is hard, there is a huge advantage for you when you go and ask for a raise because nobody else is doing it. All of a sudden you're going, let's say your team has 5 people, right? You go to your boss and we'll cover in a moment how to do it. But you go and during your conversations with your boss, ask for a raise. That fact itself will elevate you in their eyes. This person is proactive. Hey, Eric is proactive. He is asking for a raise. Looks like he's very motivated. I like the fact. I don't think any boss, I shouldn't say any, I don't think that most reasonable bosses would think of that as a negative thing. So right off the bat, that's one of the main reasons. You're just putting yourself on a good trajectory by being proactive and asking for a raise, asking for more responsibilities. I'd like to cover the hows in a bit, but I wanted to ask Eric's perspective. Eric, do you agree with that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it puts you, it's all about value when it comes to a professional. And not only the value that you provide to a corporation, but more importantly, how you value yourself, especially if you are an employee that delivers results, if you are an employee that's a team player, if you are an employee, that understands what it takes to be successful. And a lot of times you benchmark that with how much you're earning. I mean, it makes so much sense for someone to say, hey, I feel that I deserve, once again, this is a self-awareness piece, I deserve more money. And one of the key things that, excuse me, I don't want people to make the mistake because everybody feels that they deserve more money in their own eyes. But how are you going to prove that to your boss? I mean, only a fool will dispute facts. So at the end of the day, everyone does say that they deserve more money because they feel that they are the superstar of the department or they've accomplished X, Y, and Z. But if you are not strategically documenting your accomplishments and tying that into the bottom line of your boss's goals, you're going to be in a position where he or she can always deflect why you should get a raise. So I'll go into that into more detail a little bit later in the episode. But at the end of the day, it's about how you value yourself as a professional. And if you value yourself very low as a professional, you better believe that your boss's boss, and the organization as a whole is going to match that lower value that you feel of yourself. To them, they're saving money. They're having you do more valuable work, but they're not paying you what you quote unquote deserve or what you bring to the table. But I'll talk about that a little bit later.
Hey, Eric, I think I was just going to talk about these two things, and you mentioned, right? So, two things you talked about is value to the business, value to your boss. And the second thing is documenting your accomplishments. It's funny, I was going to cover those in detail, and I'll start off, and that is very, very important. So, this whole interview is about, this whole segment is about how to get a raise. Uh, but before you get there, I think you need to be in a position where you can confidently demand and get it.
Right.
Sorry, I don't want to use the word demand. Confidently ask and get it. So that ties into the value. If someone is going to give you more money, it's because you are helping that person or you're helping that business, right? Um, they're not going to give you, I've done this. My very first job, I went and asked for a raise. I was having performance review with the owner of the company. And I am embarrassed to share this, but I was young. I was out of school, and I said, "Yeah, I travel." I said something along very selfish reason, which nobody should care about. Saying, "Yeah, um, yeah, I said, you know what? I take two buses, so my commute costs are up. For that reason, I need a raise." He looked at me, smiled, and said, "Yeah, Nisar, I empathize with you, but based on what the company looks at, unfortunately, we can only give you that much." So I'm glad I asked, but also I learned how not to ask. So going back to what Eric had just said, value. If you are in a position where you're continuously adding value, that's when you should be asking for a raise. Nobody cares about your reason. Let me repeat myself. Nobody cares about your reason why you need a raise. They care about what you're doing for them. And this is reality, right? You could have a new goal of purchasing a new car, you're moving to another place where the rent is higher. But trust me, that's not the reason why your boss will give you a raise. Um, it's about the value. And this is the next point that Eric mentioned, which I want to cover. So how do you prove to your boss you have value, you're adding value? That's where documenting comes in. And many people make this mistake. They wait for the performance review at the end of the year or beginning of next year, and they expect their boss to come up with things of what they did. Big mistake. What you should be doing, or what I recommend everyone should be doing, is throughout the year, write down what are the things you have done. If you're brought in a brand, I'll give you a sales analogy. If you are the person who was responsible for landing one of the biggest clients, and as a result, the revenue has increased, write that down. Write down the process, because when your performance review comes, you have ammunition to go into that discussion. Let's say you are an office administrator and you're responsible for all the expenses, management, and purchases, and you have been responsible in implementing and choosing a system that ends up saving the company $10,000 a year. You should be noting that down. I can go on and give you examples. I gave you one example of someone making money, someone saving money. These are all value, right? Or if you have acquired a new skill, and because of that, the company doesn't need to hire another person, and you are doing two people job, write that down, documenting those accomplishments. So now once you have done this, um, the next thing I will do, once you have noted down what you have done, study what is available in the market. Do your study. There's sites like payscale.com, um, salary.com. LinkedIn has reports of what everyone else is getting paid. That information you can find. Then you prepare everything together. Then you're ready to go ask your boss or your manager for a raise. I'll talk in a little bit later about how that conversation should go, I'd like to switch it back to Eric and hear his thoughts on these two things, or even some of the other ideas.
Actually, you at that point when I was just listening to you, I was being a student myself and really thinking about the documentation piece. And I love the fact that you said, do not wait until your annual review, which is so key. I made this mistake where I thought that the only time that I can ask for a raise would be during the time that the company says, okay, you can start to ask for a raise. And one of the biggest things that most people can do is know what your boss's goals are. You know what your goals are, hopefully, because your boss gave them to you. But what are your boss's goals and commitments to his or her boss? Know what they are, and then throughout the year, help your boss achieve those goals. And to Nasar's point, document like crazy. Document, but one thing that I will also add, do weekly one-on-ones with your boss. And if people out there that don't know what a one-on-one is, basically it's a weekly meeting, one-on-one meeting with your boss to talk about. Um, a lot of people just use it to talk about work, but one of the things that you would want to use it for also, excuse me, use it for also is to discuss and make sure that you're still on track, not only with your goals, but also other things that you can do to help your boss accomplish his or her goals. But then also, it's a great place to showcase what you have accomplished throughout the year. You always want to continue to keep your accomplishments in your boss's face, and not by bragging, but at the same time, in these one-on-one meetings, say, we've completed 2 of the 8 milestones that you have throughout the year. Here's my ideas on the next one. So it shows that one, you have completed your task, you're helping out with your boss task. One of the most important things, you have it documented, but you are reinforcing those accomplishments to your boss. But once again, to Nasar's point, do not expect your boss to remember everything that you have done. That's not his or her job. Your job is to write down everything that you have accomplished, because this is going to be your roadmap to get you to the point where you can ask for a raise. Because the proof is in the pudding. The accomplishments that you document in an organized fashion, that's the proof. If this was a courtroom, the documentation that you had, the documentation of accomplishments would be the evidence that you need to support what you're asking for. Because once again, a lot of times your boss maybe have 120 things going on, and you're so focused on, okay, here are the accomplishments that I made. You want to build a case so your boss knows, okay, I did X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and everything in between. And this is the reason why I'm asking for not just your standard 5% increase. If it's a 15% increase or a 20% increase, or maybe even bigger than that, based off of how big of a raise you would want. But what you document is very, very critical to help justify what you're asking for. So I'll say, if you aren't documenting your accomplishments, you shouldn't even think about going into your office and asking your boss for a raise, because what proof do you have? So one of the first things, like I said, to Nasar's point, document everything. Not only document everything, but then also take what you've documented and tie it into the large goals or your accomplishments, large goals, accomplishments, or commitments that your boss has. Always tied into what they need to accomplish, because they do that. You do that, you put yourself at another level, because you are extremely valuable to your boss. Not just saying, okay, I got my task done. Okay, that's cool. But if you strategically say, based off of what I've done, it's helped my boss's bottom line, once again, whether it's helping bring in more money or to the company or help saving money, tie that in because that will help build your case. But Nassar, you're very on point with the documentation piece. So yeah, like I said before, if you do not have your accomplishments even documented, don't even waste your time or your boss's time going into their office asking for a raise because you have no justification on why you should get more money, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned a point about asking, and I'll get to the strategy in a moment. I think if you have everything correct before that, that strategy doesn't matter at all. I mean, it is important, but the homework is very, very important. And I don't want to repeat the point again, but we both have talked about documentation. One last thing about that I have to say is don't rely on empathy or don't rely on your boss's memory. The
Right.
reason I say that is remember I gave you this example of a time where I said something where increasing costs and I was expecting my boss's boss actually, to have empathy and he didn't. And so it's not that so you have to look at that as well. Don't use empathy as a way to get a raise. It's always about facts, always about numbers, always about how you're helping them. The second thing as well, the repeating by documentation is important, is memory. If your boss has 7 people, yeah, he or she has probably heard of the good things you've been doing, but your boss also has a job, is also managing 7 to 10 other people. So there is a good chance they will forget. So that's why you should have everything documented. So now I told you about the strategy. Told you about documentation. We have both talked about that. I've talked about doing your homework. And now the next step is asking. So yes, I started off this interview saying that it is not easy, right? Eric and I agreed that it is not easy. Not a lot of people will do this. So, but if you have done what we have asked you to do so far, asking will be the easy part. So when you're asking your boss, always ask in a private meeting. Don't walk up to your boss's desk and say, I need a raise. Here's my proof. Ask for a private meeting. Set aside time and always, maybe you can pre-schedule with your boss. If you have one-on-one, say, hey, can we spend like 10 minutes at the end? I want to speak about something. Give them some time. Uh, or even ask for a separate meeting. That's okay. Because most bosses will sit down with you if they care about you as an employee. So that is something that is important. Set up a time. That discussion should not be cluttered with other discussion. Either have it at the end of a meeting or have its own meeting. And when you go to the meeting, as we have repeated many times, make it about them, make it about the company, make it about the boss, make it about the value, make it about the savings, the increased sales, increased revenue, productivity. It's never about you. Say, build a case. It's like you're building a case. You put everything in front of them and say, this is what I've done for the company. I want to continue to work here. This is what I'm making today. And based on my research at the market, I believe this is where I should be standing. I'm hoping you can help me out. So I'll repeat myself. You're sitting in front of your boss, and this strategy was work for me. Trust me, I told you about my failure in asking for a raise. At one point, I asked for a raise and I ended up getting 15%. The standard increase in raise is 3%. I got 15% because I asked and I built a case. So the process is you're sitting in front of them and say, this is what I've done for the company. These are all the facts. These are all the statistics. This is all the data. Um, this is what I'm making today. Based on what I've studied in the market, this is where I believe I should be in the range. And I'm hoping you can help me out by getting to that level. See, once again, you're not demanding. You're not demanding, say, I need a raise, Eric. I need a raise. Otherwise, I'll quit, because that does not sit well. But if you're if you're asking for help, we talked about this in episode number 5, asking for help. Can you help me get there? That will lower all their defenses. Even if they don't help you right now, they will find something. So that's a long spiel. This is something that has worked for me. I've recommended it to others. It has worked for them. Eric, I wanted to hear your input or your ideas as well.
Well, actually, this is probably the first time this has ever happened, but I don't think I have any. You were dead on. Even to the point. where you talked about, which I love, you ask for a private meeting. Just don't walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, boss, I need more money." It's just that overall approach just shows your level of professionalism, right? And angling it or positioning your ask that will help benefit the company is ingenious, because most people make the mistake where they just look at it like, this is what I've done, I want more money. And like you said, I want more money or I'm going to leave. You can be replaced regardless. Everybody can be replaced in corporate America. Everyone. Not saying that it'll be a loss for the company, but at the same time, you never want to manipulate someone into giving you more money or give them an ultimatum, because that ultimatum, it may backfire. And if it does backfire, you are out of a job. And to your point, Nassar, they may not be able to do something right now, but they'll take that into consideration. And then also, what also be, a little bit flexible, because sometimes a company may not have any quote unquote extra money in their budget, but what are some other things that you can gain from the situation that may not be from a monetization standpoint, but hey, if you could, hey, could you do some type of training? Can they send you to, a certification training where the certification you would usually have to pay, five, six, $7,000 out of your own pocket. Maybe position that so you can have the company pay for the certification, because the main thing is we've been discussing as if the company does have the money. However, we would want you to be versatile enough. If they say, okay, well, we don't have any money in our budget right now, you have another option. Well, I was thinking about going to this training. The training is $10,000, because companies have different budgets. Don't let them fool you. Some companies have an education budget, so some people have other type of budgets. But for example, have a couple of more options that will benefit you if that initial ask for more money, if they can't um, if they can't grant that, so to speak. So you'll have more ideas. For example, well, we can't give you the money, Eric. Well, here's some training. I know that we have an education budget. I was thinking about taking, because at the end of the day, the money will benefit you from a monetization standpoint, but what other things that the company can possibly, that you can ask for, that the company can possibly give you, that helps, better you. Because I've seen situations where, okay, they don't have the money. The person had their documentation, they stated their case. I mean, even the boss was like, you know what, you positioned this so well, but then the reality check came in. Unfortunately, and you know what, unfortunately, after the word unfortunately, it's not going to be any news that'll benefit you, right? So unfortunately, we can't, we don't have money in our budget this year to provide you with a raise. So what she quickly did was she had other options. Well, I know that we have a training budget. Is there a way that I can go to this training? So she didn't, at that point in time, she didn't get the money. However, she leveraged herself a little bit more. So at the next 6 months, not only did get the money because we rolled into a new fiscal year, she also got the training that she wanted. So that was one of the things that just came to mind. We're through the gist of this episode, we're, positioning, we're telling you to position yourself and have documentation for the ask, right? Which with the SAR laid it out great. However, the next other thing that I would add is have other options, where other things that you can possibly get, so you're not leaving that meeting empty-handed. Because if you've done your due diligence, if you've worked hard, you've done your documentation, you strategically thought out how, to ask, you built up the courage. Like, once again, we talked about courage in episode 6, if I'm not mistaken, but you built up the courage to ask for the raise, and unfortunately they can't do it. you would want to leave with something. And 9 times out of 10, it's your responsibility. If you put all this time, effort, and energy into positioning yourself to ask for a certain amount of more money, and you also want to take the next step and say, if they don't have the money, what's the next thing that I can benefit from that will help me out. So it's just about having those options so you can leave with something out of that meeting in the event that they say, well, I'm sorry, you feel that you do deserve it. We appreciate you asking, but we can't give it to you because of X, Y, and Z. So that was the added piece that I wanted to talk about. Give yourself options so you're not leaving that meeting frustrated. And you don't want to feel like you wasted your time, your effort, and energy. And I see so many people do this because they're not giving themselves additional options to leave with something. So that's the only add-on that I have based off of this. Great job, Nassar.
Hey, Eric, thank you. And one thing I wanted to add, you brought up something very interesting, right? So at the end of the day, this is a negotiation. I read about this a few years ago, and it expanded my view of negotiation. So when everybody thinks about negotiation as a win or lose, you all think as if there's a small basket or everything is limited, right? For example, you expanded the horizon, saying, there could be other things that you could benefit from,
Right.
right? And that negotiation concept I was talking about is called expanding the pie, because you're trying to take, let's say let's say a company has a pool of salaries which they have to divvy up. Think of that as a pie, but now you're thinking about expanding the pie. There could be other things you could get. It could be anything. It could be allowances you could get. It could be extra vacation. It could
Yep.
be benefits. It could be stock options. Hey, you never know, because you asked and you're showing your boss that you're doing two people's job. You could even get promoted. You never know. You're setting the path. So asking for a raise, I'm not going to talk about the benefits because Eric has already done that, but I wanted to come back, and if you don't take away from what we just said, um, we spoke about how to ask, what else to ask, but a couple of don'ts, as I mentioned before, don't demand, right? Because to Eric's example of the individual who got the training program, had that person demanded, saying, I will quit, or made threats. Don't play games, don't make threats, don't demand. If you ask in a nice, convincing way, you will benefit. May not be today, may not be the money you want today, but you will get something out of it.
Right. Right. That's it.
I think we've covered a lot of ground in this particular topic. I think that's a great segue, because right now we talked about how to get a raise if you're already working somewhere, because that's what a raise is about. I think we should cover this topic, which is again a stressful thing. It involves money. Is when you get a job, how do you get more money? How do you negotiate a higher salary than what is being offered? It's two different discussions. That's the reason we decided to split it up, because trust me, if you are the best time to get a raise is actually when you get the job. We
Yep.
talked about strategies once you have a job. So in the next episode, myself and Eric will talk about how to negotiate a better salary. Um, Eric, any last words before we wrap up?
Yeah, because we're big with call to actions. Based off of the last segment, um, it's more that you can ask for than just money. Once again, so in the comments below, of course, when you want to ask for a raise, initially you want to think about money. But in the comments below, what are some other things that you can strategically ask for that you can benefit from it when you ask for a raise? Because everyone is different. So I would love to hear what are some of the things that you feel that you can benefit from outside of money that will help compensate the value that you bring to your organization. Because like I said, our main focus here was about money, but sometimes money doesn't always motivate people. What are some other things, like like Nassar said, What about vacation? What about training? What about stock options? There's so many things that other people can benefit from, but we specifically want to hear from you. And then based off of that, um, figure out how you would intertwine that if you would have a conversation with your boss. We all know this is about strategy. So what are some things and how strategic can you be when you go in and ask your boss for a raise? So definitely comment in the comment box below. Once again, on behalf of Nassar and myself, thank you for taking the time and effort and energy to look at this vlog. Thanks, guys, and have a great day.
See you next time, guys.